You're listening to Clearview Today with Dr. Abadan Shah, the daily show that engages mind and heart for the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm Ryan Hill.
I'm John Galantis.
You can find us online at clearviewtodayshow.com, or if you have any questions for Dr. Shah or suggestions for new topics, send us a text to 252-582-5028, or you can email us at contact@clearviewtodayshow.com.
That's right. You guys can help us keep the conversation moving forward by supporting the show. You can share it online with your friends and family. Leave us a good 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasting content from. Absolutely nothing less than 5 stars. For any reason, I will find you and I will make you leave a 5-star review. I can't stand to see those 4-star reviews.
I will find you and I will weep in front of you.
Yeah. Y'all must really think y'all are cute. Have you ever seen a 32-year-old worship pastor cry? Because you're about to.
Because you will. I saw on, I think it was Snapchat or text message, you guys went to, was it Defy Gravity?
Defy Gravity Trampoline Park. I don't know if we've ever talked about this on the show, but the last time I was there, I went with Dr. Shah's daughter, Abigail, and her husband, Jarrett. Jarrett's a Marine, great guy, Star Wars fan. Shout out to Jarrett. But that night, he didn't do good. He lost his keys in the the foam, that big foam pit, gigantic foam pit. If you've never seen pictures of this place, just imagine like a kid's dream trampoline park. It's so, I mean, even for adults, it's fun.
It is a lot of fun.
But he lost his keys in the trampoline park, and that made the night a lot less fun real quick. David was there. He looks kind of shell-shocked. So I took Gavin there. That was the first time we'd been back in I don't know when that was, like a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Had he been before?
Never.
Had Gavin been?
As a baby.
Okay.
He went that night.
Oh, gotcha.
He went that night, but he was a baby.
But he's
he
not jumping and stuff.
I mean, he was bouncing on the little thing, and people were kind of holding him. So I took Gavin and I took Holden this past weekend, and I had a feeling this would happen, but I tricked myself into thinking that it wouldn't. You've got 5 youngins.
I do.
5 kids. So I mean, this is a truth that you could probably speak to. Kids don't know when they're having fun. They don't know how to shut that off.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
There's a valve that an adult can have when it's like, okay, we're having fun, now let's settle back down, let's get serious, or it's time to go. Yeah. Kids don't have that.
Yeah.
He can't figure out. Did your kids ever have that problem?
Absolutely. Mine are a little bit older now, so our youngest is 5. He still struggles with that somewhat, but they're kind of they've learned to measure their expectations, and they have a better understanding of the passing of time.
Right.
But when you're little and you're having fun, man, that's like a huge chapter of your life. I mean, Gavin's only 3, so a several-hour window is man, this is the greatest experience of my whole life. Whereas us, we're it's a couple hours. We know that this is going to come to an end.
We paid for 90 minutes, and they gave us a wristband, and all the wristbands, it's a cool system they've got. The wristbands are different colors depending on your time slot. So they gave us a green wristband. So every 15 to 20 minutes, something like that, they would make an announcement. Attention jumpers, if you have a blue wristband, your time is now up. Please make your way back to the lobby to check out, blah, 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 all this stuff. So I told him, I said, hey, buddy, when they say your green wristband, that's our time to go. And I saw the dread come over him every time. And when they finally called it because at the end of 90 minutes, by 60, 70 minutes, me and Ellie were ready to go. Holden was ready to go. But Gavin is having so much fun. He's going up to strangers and trying to play with them.
Yeah.
There was a dad there trying to spend quality time with his son, and Gavin was all up under him. And I was like, hey, Gavin, buddy, people don't like that. He wants to spend time with his son. He was like, oh, I want to spend time
with his son too.
I was like, all right, yeah, go for it. So anyway, they call the green wristbands, and it's exactly what I thought. Full meltdown. I mean, when I say this dude's world shattered, his world broke entirely apart. And we had to take him out of there. But you can't just pick him up and walk out. You got to take your socks off. You got to put the socks back.
Yeah, it's
you
a whole ordeal. Screaming the whole time.
You got to go to the cubby. You got to put his shoes back on. Now Holden's running around. You got to go get him. So now we're dividing and conquering. But Ellie doesn't want all these people staring at her while Gavin's screaming. So I got to go handle Gavin. Yeah. It was exiting that place was probably the most ungraceful I've ever been.
Yeah, I feel that. When we were, there were several times when the twins and Evie were little. So for a while, we had 3 under 3.
Right.
That's intense.
I remember you used to say that. I always thought that was clever. The 3 under 3.
Yeah. So that was intense, and it was not graceful to get anywhere because if one melts down, chances are the other 2 are going to follow.
Yeah.
And then Joanna came right on the heels of that, and the twins are older, but we still had 4 under 4, and then it was intense for a little while, and as they've gotten older, it's gotten much easier. But those young years, it is hard for them to shut that fun off.
Part of me wants to be okay with it because I get what people say. They're like, you're going to miss that. When they're teenagers and they don't want nothing to do with you, you're going to miss that. And I'm like, I hear you. I hear you. It's just so hard for me to value this right now in the in the middle of the trampoline park when everyone else is having fun and all the other kids are behaving. Yeah. It's hard to be like, I'm going to miss this one.
Now, I will tell you this. I miss when they were little itty bitty like snuggle babies. I miss that. I miss when they were kind of toddling like Holden's age.
Yeah.
I miss that. I do not miss diapers. I do not miss sleepless nights. I do not miss trying to like shuffle everyone together in a stroller with a diaper
Public
bag and this.
meltdowns? Do you miss that?
I do not miss that. Nope. I don't miss that. I don't.
We're going to ask Dr. Shah. Dr. Shah's a father of 4, so I'm sure he's had his share of public meltdowns and public embarrassment with the kids. Yeah.
It's like trial by fire. Everybody has to go through it.
100%.
Write in and let us know your public meltdown story with your kids, or maybe it wasn't.
Or maybe it was you. Yeah,
maybe
I was about to say.
252-582-5028, or you can visit us online at clearviewtodayshow.com. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
What's going on, listeners? My name is John.
And I'm David.
And we hope you are enjoying the podcast thus far.
You know, we really appreciate how many of you download the podcast every day.
Right.
But we also want to remind you that we are first and foremost a radio show.
Clearview Today is actually syndicated through the Truth Network. And we just want to let you know right now that in addition to hosting the all-time best Christian talk show of all time,
Hashtag Clearview Today.
Hashtag Clearview Today, the Truth Network also, as it turns out, has an extensive library of Christian programming.
We really love everything they're doing at the Truth Network because the whole goal is to encourage, challenge, confront, and uplift listeners with the life-changing truth of Jesus Christ through Christian Talk Radio.
And listen, we know we are not the only show wanting to expand its audience. So if you have a vision for your show or for your ministry, why don't you consider syndicating your show through the Truth Network? Because they rely on decades of experience of self-syndication with a full array of features for your long-form or short-form content.
Make sure you visit the Truth Network online today at truthnetwork.com, or you can give them a call at 336-759-0363. Again, that's 336-759-0363. Well, John, are you ready?
I was born ready, my friend. Let's hop right back in.
All right.
Welcome back to Clearview Today with Dr. Abadan Shah, the daily show that engages mind and heart for the gospel of Jesus Christ. You can visit us online at clearviewtodayshow.com. If you have any questions or suggestions for new topics, send us a text to 252-582-5028.
That's right, and we're here once again in the Clearview Today studio with Dr. Abadan Shah, who's a PhD in New Testament textual criticism, professor at Carolina University, author, full-time pastor, and the host of today's show. Dr. Shah, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever been somewhere with your kids when they're little? You know, little, or maybe when they're big, I don't even know. But you're having fun, right? It's like a family fun day, and it's like, all right, guys, time to go on home. And once the fun stops, just the meltdowns start. Have you ever been in that situation?
It's happened before. I won't say if the person is in this room. Meltdown would never happen.
They would not be in this room.
Meltdown, I don't know, maybe it was just because it was scared of me. But it was kind of like it would be sniffling.
Kids think fun just lasts forever.
Yeah.
They can't shut the fun off. I don't know what it is. We were talking in the intro. We took our 2 kids to the trampoline park over in Raleigh, the Defy Gravity trampoline park, and they were kept calling, when your time was up, and so they were like, "Hey, if you're wearing a green wristband," and Gavin just fell all to pieces. His heart just shattered into a million pieces.
This could go on forever.
As a parent, how do you cut the fun off?
It is hard. It is hard to do that. But I mean, you did right. You prepared him.
Yeah.
You reminded him, but it still didn't work.
No, it didn't work.
It didn't work. What it is.
Those emotions, I don't know if it's just being 3 or I don't know if it's his personality, but those emotions just overtake him. They just take him away from here.
3's tough. 3's a hard one.
Yeah.
I feel like they start to feel things very deeply at 3 and then get really, really upset.
Yeah. It is what it is, man. It is what it is. Shout out to my son.
Shout out to Gavin. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the Clearview Current, where we cut through the chaos of today's headlines with a clear Christian perspective. We're here to keep you up to date on what's going on in the world, big or small.
Dr. Shah, you sent us a pretty interesting headline today, and I really was not expecting that. I thought it was one of the weirder headlines that I thought was going to come out of it. It was public support for polygamy is growing, especially in the Christian context.
Yeah.
What in the world is that?
Yes, this is. I think there was a article in the New Yorker.
Mm-hmm.
How did polyamory become so popular? That's the title of this article. And this came out, I'm trying to get the date right, December. And it's just talks about how the shows that have come out in the past few years on TV, and then other things that are going on, that people are becoming more acceptable to polygamy.
Yeah, it's bizarre behavior.
Yeah, this stat right here, according to a Gallup poll, is just it's just really it's funny, but it's also really, really sad and indicative of kind of where we are with our view of marriage. It says few U.S. adults, 11%, believe having an affair is morally acceptable. It's not morally acceptable. Most people would agree that it is not morally acceptable to have an affair.
Right.
But more than twice as many, 23%, don't have any issues with polygamy.
Yeah, as long as your partner's cool with it, some version of this open relationship, and you see it increasing in media coverage. Like you see it so much, and I remember it used to be like that's weird, but people these days are like it's really not that weird.
Yeah, don't have an affair,
but
just get married to both.
But it's only quote unquote not weird because you say that it is.
Yeah,
and so I guess if enough people say that something's fine, I guess it's fine.
But you have a state called Utah.
In
true. 2020, they reclassified adults voluntarily living in a polygamous relationship. Mm-hmm. So now there is no like a jail time or some penalty. It's just an infraction.
Yeah, just like a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, it's like don't do that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. No, we won't.
It's like you better not. It's also funny too because now we're twisting it and distorting it so much where it's like there's polygamy, which is like, hey, I'm just with a bunch of different people. We're just having fun. We're in an open relationship. Right. But then there's polyamory, which I'm in love with all these people.
Right.
I'm these are like loving relationships and marriages.
Yeah. Which is a big fat lie.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
According to Pew Research, again, I'm going back to this article. Lifeway Research did a great job putting it all together, but it's coming from other sources. So the New Yorker, Gallup Research, Pew Research. According to Pew Research, only about 2% of the global population, and less than 0.5% of Americans live in polygamous households.
So maybe it's not catching on quite as much as we thought.
I don't think it's catching on. It's just public opinion.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's like, well, if they're not hurting anybody. And then what's also interesting is even in Muslim countries that legally allow men to have multiple wives, fewer than 1% of Muslim men do so. And the practice is more common in sub-Saharan Africa, where 11% of the population lives in arrangements that include more than one spouse. So we think, everybody in the Muslim world is doing that. Like growing up, I did not see but one or two relationships like that. One was actually in the church.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it happened quite interestingly where there was no marriage, but there was a couple who used to come to church, and they were in church a long time. And in fact, the family was in church and part of church even before my dad came there as a pastor. And then I remember growing up years watching this couple. They couldn't have any children, and so that was kind of a sad part in their life. But then I remember, this is back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. There was some word around town that their house cleaner had sort of moved in with them, and they put it out there as if this move was to help her out,
just to save some money, help
her because her situation was so bad. But that's not what was happening. What was happening was that this wife had sort of like Sarah presented her. This girl to her husband so he can have a child.
Bro.
Yeah. So it's like a Abraham, Sarah, Hagar thing happening.
They
were like really applying the Bible in a whole different weird sort of way.
Wasn't the whole point of the story like, hey, guys, don't do this?
Yeah, don't do that, but they were like doing it.
Yeah.
That was in the 80s?
It was in the 80s.
What was the opinion on that? What was like public opinion on that?
Well, they kept it hush-hush. It was never like put out there.
Got you.
And then this woman had a baby, and they doted on the baby, and even this wife would like take the baby out and go places with the baby, and it was like, wow, you're doing this in broad daylight.
So they were like a throuple, like a 3-person couple.
I guess so.
Wow.
And it was kind of wrong on every level. It was like nobody would ask, and they would keep doing this. So it was like, this is our house cleaner's child, but you're loving all over this child that actually is your husband's child also,
right?
But not through you. So it was tragic, horrible, and it didn't end well. I don't know what happened there, but it was never. It was not a happy ending.
Wow.
I mean, completely goes against what God has said.
Oh, 100%.
If you go back to the book of Genesis, chapter 2:24, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother, it's all singular, and be joined to his wife, also singular, and they shall become one flesh. Again, singular. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, not the man and his wives, or the men and his wife, or their wife, but it was man and his wife, and were not ashamed.
Right. Yeah.
So it's very, very tragic.
Yeah, there's a clear design, and it's being stepped on even today. And even like we said, even if it's not happening more and more and more, public opinion certainly plays a role in how much things grow. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Even if that doesn't happen, like you said, the polyamory, where loving anything, anyone, whatever, children.
Right.
This is all part of that umbrella. This is all part of that umbrella where it is used as a foil. So you say, oh, yeah, polygamy, that's so dumb. What you don't realize is something else is being passed under the same
That's true.
Yep.
umbrella. But this one is more about something very deviant and abusive and wrong.
Yeah, there was a message that you preached, and I'd love to, if we can, I would love to link this message in the show notes of this episode, because this sermon that you did really touched myself and my wife. I think to this day, it's one of her favorite sermons you ever did, but it's called If the Foundations Were Destroyed.
Yeah.
And it basically was saying exactly what you're saying, that homosexual activity in the Bible is clearly depicted as immoral. It's a sin before God, and it is also the first step to any civilization beginning to crumble.
Right.
And there was a point you made in that sermon where you said it is the doorway to, like you said, other even more depraved activities, such as being in love with children and stuff like that. And you said, I remember you said, it might not be this year, it may not be next year, it might not be 10 years from now, but it's coming.
It's coming.
And I think we are starting to see the very edges of it finally starting, because that sermon was like 5 or 6 years ago.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
But I think we're in the beginning stages of starting to see some sympathy towards people who...
Certainly.
Yeah,
certainly.
It's definitely happening.
Yeah. The further we get away from biblical values, the further we get away from our Judeo-Christian foundation, then the door opens up to these kind of things. And I'm not saying everybody in the world who is non-Christian are all good with this behavior. Not necessarily. But the foundation on which our nation was built, the freedoms and yet the responsibilities that are in this very beautiful, delicate, intricate, wise relationship is no longer there.
Right.
So further we get away from the Bible, the more we are open to junk.
100%.
And that's why we need to return to biblical values. We need to return to our foundation. Everybody's welcome in America, but you're not welcome to do whatever you want to do.
Right.
Well, you're forcing your Christian values on me. Yeah. I mean, I'm not forcing you to become a Christian, but I'm just telling you that this nation, the foundation is poured in biblical foundation. So that's how this thing works. That's how America works.
Amen.
That's a wrap for today's edition of the Clearview Current. Thanks for tuning in and staying connected with us as we navigate this crazy world's events together. Until next time, keep your hearts lifted, your mind sharp, and your spirit joyful.
I always feel like a news anchor when that music plays us out. Hey, good job, man. You really sell that line every time. Hey, Dr. Shah, today's verse of the day is coming to us from Daniel chapter 9 and verse 4. And I think it actually goes along with what we were saying. It says, I prayed to the Lord my God and made confession and said, O Lord, great and awesome God, who keeps his covenant and mercy with those who love him and with those who keep his commandments.
Who better to say that than Daniel?
Amen.
Living in a foreign land, living in Babylon, and then later on under the Medo-Persian Empire. I mean, godless people who are living a life of worshiping idols And in this culture, these were those Hebrew boys who stood up for the truth, and that's who Daniel was.
100%.
Yeah, spirit of Daniel. I mean, so courageous, so bold, and yet, I mean, he was not brash. He was not rude. He wasn't, trying to raise a riot. But he did say, "I'm not going to go along with that. I can't go along with that because of my conviction."
Requires so much courage.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're in a foreign land. You're one of the exiles. And yet you have been given the opportunity to rule. I mean, he is like one of the top emerging leaders. And yet he's like, well, I'm going to hang on to my convictions.
Yeah. Imagine like being taken from your home, like today in 2024, you've been taken from your home and you're taken over to the Middle East as a captive. But then they're like, hey, we're gonna set you up, give you a nice little place. You're gonna be a very important person here. You just can't do any of this Christianity stuff. Like, how many of us would be like, shoot, I'm going for it. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, it's easy to say you would, but actually being in that position. But it's also kind of funny because Dr. Shah, you and also you, Ryan, kind of went on this campaign a couple years ago, I think during the 2020 pandemic and all this stuff that was going on, where we're starting to see that America really is in a state of exile. We're in a spiritual exile. And I remember leaning heavily on Daniel during that time, because how do we, like Daniel, shine in exile?
Yeah.
How do we not just survive? Because a lot of pastors and a lot of churches would be like, let's just survive this. Let's just get through this. Let's just try to keep our doors open. How do we then shine in a time of exile?
Yeah.
When all this began 4 years ago now, 2020, I called one of my mentors and I said, what do you suppose should be our course of action? Because I could see, even before the shutdowns really began, I could see things were coming. And I talked to you guys. If you all remember that, I talked to you
definitely.
a lot. I said, things are coming. It's going to be a different world. And is it not a different world?
Oh,
Yes,
it's
it is
a very different world.
Yeah, in some ways, it's like, life has moved on. We're past the pandemic. We are past the pandemic, but there has definitely been a shift. Shift in the mindset of people, shift in our way of living, our way of thinking. There has been a radical shift. And those who are able to step out of this current are able to look down and go, wow, look at that current.
Yep.
When you're being swept with it, you don't think. You're like, oh yeah, this is great. I mean, just feel like, oh, this nice cool water. I'm getting dashed against the rocks, but it's part of it's part of life, We all get that.
Right.
When you step out of it and go, oh my goodness, this is a flood.
It's like when you're at the beach and like you're playing in the water and then you come in, you're like, that's not my umbrella.
Yeah.
Where's
I've been
my
swept down the beach.
Yeah, where's my family?
Yeah, they're way on the other side over there.
That's crazy.
So that's when that happened. So I called one of my mentors and called several of them. I said, help me to think, because am I overreacting? Am I just being overzealous here? And one of them said, no, I think you are given the Holy Spirit and He's helping you have a vision and chart the course in the midst of a very turbulent time. So the question you need to ask yourself is, what will people say about you when all this is over?
That's true.
He said, if you can answer that question and be satisfied and be at peace with that answer, that is the way to go.
Yeah.
And so I prayed about it. I talked to you guys at the time, and I prayed, and I said, God, when all this is over, let people see us as godly leaders. Help people see us as standing for the gospel, for biblical convictions. Help people to see us as those who will be like a lighthouse for them, be like a pilot car, guiding people through difficult times because they're here. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
What will people say about you when all this is over?
Yeah. That was such a. I remember sitting down and having those talks, and that was such a guiding light in that time when everything was uncertain, and it felt like the landscape underneath you was changing.
Yeah, the key word was unprecedented.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody was trying to say that.
Yeah, I heard that so much.
And it's kind of funny to take the conversation back to what we were talking about with all this homosexuality, polygamy, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny that you bring that quote up. What are people going to say about you when all this is over? Because we get so caught up in what's happening right now that we don't think about, is this right? This is going to pass, but how I behaved during this entire shift, whether it's health related or a cultural shift. Dr. Shah, talking about that quote, and I really love that quote, what are people going to say about you when all this is over? There's a quote that I saw from another pastor, talking about all that stuff that we were talking about earlier, homosexuality, transgenderism, polygamy. It's infiltrating the church. Mm-hmm. And there's a quote that a pastor put out there that said the church has to overcome its aversion to these particular kinds of sinful behavior. And he goes on to say we have to recognize our responsibility, no matter the person's behavior, is still to present the gospel. But that stuck with me. The church has to overcome its aversion to these particular kinds of sins. And I'm wondering about that quote that you just mentioned, that you just said, that when all this is said and done, all the dust is settled, Christ has come back, what are people going to remember about a pastor who says something like that? That we have to just put aside someone else's sin and just preach the gospel.
Yeah, and there's I get his heart. I think he wants us to focus on the gospel, which I think we should. Mm-hmm. And I always remind myself as a pastor, as part of this leadership team, to constantly make sure that nothing takes us away from sharing the gospel. Right. Nothing takes us away, whether it's busyness or we're here to teach, or we're here to disciple people, or we're here to start more programs or write books and lead movements, that nothing takes us away from sharing the good news that Jesus Christ saves. Mm-hmm. But there's also a responsibility to warn people that sin is bad. Mm-hmm. And yes, we all sin, I get it. But then there are certain sins, sexual sins, that not only are sins against the body, but also sins that ultimately corrupt and implode cultures.
Yes.
In my book with Nicole, I talk about J.D. Unwin. J.D. Unwin was a professor. He was. You
want a hard copy?
Yeah, there it is.
Pick just fell out. Don't worry about it.
J.D. Unwin talks about this in his. And by the way, he wrote this over 100 years ago. And he did some research, of cultures that were involved in. Just went off the deep end when it comes to sex. I'm trying to find that right chapter here. But anyways, so he did research, and this is what he found. Every ancient culture, right up until our present time, when they could not control their sexual urges, mm-hmm. when marriage was no longer valued, right, mm-hmm. and protected between a man and a woman, this monogamous institution, mm-hmm. relationship, that culture eventually fell apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, this is what he did. In a sense, what he was really saying, if I can say this without being crass, he was saying, he was a Britisher, by the way. He was saying, zip up for the empire.
Well,
I like it. I love it.
He was saying, zip up.
Yeah.
Pull your zippers up if you want to save the British Empire.
For the guy, I think someone needs to be saying that to America today. Maybe we should say that. Zip up for America.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's, and he's not talking about zip up your mouth. He was saying,
oh, yeah, no.
Stop having these illegitimate sexual unions and running around and doing whatever that you feel like doing. He says, stop doing that.
It's such a false premise because it's all wrapped up in freedom.
Yeah.
If this is America, but you're gonna control who we sleep with and who we have sex with and who we're attracted to, it's such a false premise.
Yeah.
It's not about how free you are. It's not about what debauchery you can get into.
Yeah. It's here. It's chapter 24. Finally found it. It's called Righteousness.
Yeah.
And in this, he studied 86 cultures through 5,000 years of history. He was an Oxford anthropologist. Mm-hmm. And in his book called Sex and Culture, which is a thick book, and I have a copy of it, he studied the Romans, the Greeks, the Sumerians, the Moors, the Babylonians, the Anglo-Saxons, and many others. And his conclusion was, zip up if you want to save the empire.
Amen. I love it. Great message. What was his name again?
J.D. Unwin.
J.D. Unwin. There you go, my friend. Appreciate you. Zip up for the empire, folks.
Also, just want to remind you guys that Dr. Shah and Nicole's book, 30 Days of Praying for America, is available now wherever books are sold. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at ebook. You can order it from our Clearview Church website as well. If you'd like the link to that, you can send us a text to 252-582-5028. And let us know how today's episode helped you out by texting that very same number or send an email to contact@clearviewtodayshow.com. We want to be able to give you the resources that you need to be able to stand up against the false doctrines that the world is spewing as truth. Lots of great content coming your way the rest of this week. Make sure you guys tune in. We love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow on Clearview Today.